Hey residents of Meepletown, today we're going to be looking at Foothills, a Snowdonia experience by Ben Bateson and Tony Boydell. In this game, it's kind of like a two-player only version of Snowdonia, and we're going to be removing rubble, we're going to be building tracks, we're going to be building stations, and we're going to try to see who has the most victory points at the end of the game. So I say let's just jump right in and let's look at Foothills by Lookout Games. Alright, so we have Foothills ready to roll here. Now, if you've ever played Snowdonia in the past, you're going to notice that there are definitely some similarities, but there's also definitely differences in this game. One of the biggest ones is this is only a two-player game, so this is a two-player only game, but also one of the major differences is you're going to have card-based actions rather than a worker placement game. So it gives it definitely a different feel for sure, especially decisions that you're making over the course of this game. So I'm just going to dive in and show you all how it's played and kind of teach you as we're playing. So I'm gonna play the green player over here, and then we're gonna have a blue player that will be competing against. And I'm gonna go first, but there's definitely a positive to going second in this game, and that is there are 6 cubes, iron ore, and stone, which they're going to be orange cubes. There's also going to be gray cubes. This is going to be the iron ore. This is going to be the stone. And then the other cube that could come out into the stockyard is a white event cube, which we'll talk about later on. And so there were, as you can see, that she got first dibs here, and so she picked the 2 of the iron ore, which left me with 1 iron ore and a stone. So though I get to go first, she got first picks in the stockyard. And now the game is going to be played. Now we will refill the stockyard after all the cubes are gone. We'll refill it up to 6. So what do I want to do on my first turn? It's going to be simply flipping over one of these cards based on what action I take. And so for the first action in this game, I'm going to take this card right here that says remove 4 rubble from a single line, and I'm going to flip it, which will then reveal a different action. So I'm going to have to be thinking about that a lot as I play this game. This is one of the biggest things that you're thinking about, like, okay, I flipped the card over, but now there's a different action. Can I do that action next turn to flip it back over if I want to? Different things like that. But I'm going to remove 4 rubble. So I'm going to choose to remove 4 rubble from this line. When I remove the rubble, if I have taken the last rubble, I'm going to score a victory point. So I'm going to take this 4 rubble here. Then I'm going to go ahead and start off with a victory point in this game. Now, we're going to be able to build tracks and stations now on this card because the rubble is removed. We must remove rubble from left to right, and we can't build tracks or stations until the rubble is removed, so I couldn't have done either one of those actions. So I've removed the rubble, which has really paved the way for her to build a track here or a station here, but she doesn't have the resources, and to build a station, you're simply going to pay whatever resources are in this box. She doesn't have any stones, so she can't do that, which I knew, and that was one of the reasons I removed the rubble from that one. But she's going to go ahead and she's going to build tracks. Now, one of the negatives to this is to build tracks, she has to flip this card over. That's going to allow us to lay up to 3 tracks or exchange 2 rubble for a stone, or a combination of those 2 up to 3 times. And I knew that if she does this action, she's going to lose this ability to get stone for rubble because she doesn't have any rubble. So she's going to flip this over, and the only action she can do is trade in the 2 iron ore to place a track, but she's going to go ahead and do this. It's going to go back into this bag here. She is going to grab, actually one of my stations is in her pile there. She is going to grab one of these track tiles, and she is going to place it right here, which is going to give her a victory point. So you're going to gain victory points for removing the last piece of rubble, but also for placing tracks. So she went ahead and grabbed that, and she had to flip this over. So it's now back to my turn over here. And I'm looking at what I have, and I see that I can build a station. I actually see a really good combination set up for me, which is why I removed the rubble from this. And that is to flip this card over, build 1 station, which is going to cost me 1 stone. This is going to go back into the bag. Then I'm going to take one of my station tiles. I'm going to place it right here. When I do that, I'm going to get any bonuses that are in the bottom right corner. And so all of these don't actually have bonuses for building stations, but this one does, and it means I get a passenger, which is going to be worth, if I have this passenger, at the end of the game, a half of a victory point. Now, I'm going to make mention, now that I've mentioned victory points a few times here, that this is a victory point based game. So at the end of the game, whoever has the most victory points wins, and I'll show you the way that you're going to score victory points besides getting the victory point chits like you've already seen. But how is the game end triggered, you might ask? It's going to be triggered at the one of two ways. One is all these Navi tiles will be placed out, which I'll show you that here, how they get placed out in a bit. But also, when a line is completed, so whenever we have built track to the end of a line, we're going to take one of these bumpers, these stoppers, and place it at the end of a line. When we do so, when all 5 of these bumpers are out, or the stoppers are out, the game end is going to be triggered as well. So that's one of 2 ways to trigger those. All right, so now that I've placed this station, I get the bonus, if any, but I also get to move up this track, which this track is going to tell me how many cards I can put into my scoring pile, which we'll get to a little bit later, but there's a really neat way that you score points, again, besides getting these victory chits, and that's by actually taking a card, getting rid of it, putting it into your scoring pile, and then at the end of the game scoring based on whatever this says. Like this says I would get 1 victory point for every station that I have built. Then replacing that card with one of these, if I can, actually I need to flip that over. If these are available. If they're not available, then I just am going to lose that action for the rest of the game. All right, so I've gone ahead and I've done, I've moved up this track, I've gotten this, but also building a station triggers being able to get this action immediately, which is why there's this arrow right here. And this action says that I can exchange up to 2 rubble for 1 iron ore, which I love. So I'm going to take 2 rubble here, and I'm going to exchange it for 2 iron ore. So I'm going to grab 2 iron ore out of the bag. If there were iron ore in the stockyard, I would have the option to take those from the stockyard, but there's not, so I'm going to grab this here. So I exchange my 2 rubble for 2 iron ore, and now this action is available for anyone who wants to take a surveyor action and move their surveyor to that spot, and they can do that action at any point over the course of the game. So it's really neat that as the game opens up, as we're removing rubble and placing stations, that a lot more actions begin to open up over the course of the game. Now, I will also say that surveyors are actually allowed to move to any of these spots because there's no rubble on them. So each station actually has a place to put it, to get a bonus, and to take one of the tickets, which can either get you victory points at the end of the game, or, like this card says, move your surveyor to an action space for which you have a ticket. So they could move it to this space right here if they had a light blue line ticket. All right, so that was a really good move for me right there. I'm pretty excited about it. So now it's her turn, and what she's thinking is she wants to remove some rubble to score some victory points and to open up some more opportunities. She's not going to do this right here because she sees that I have a passenger and could immediately just build a station. I don't have 2 stone, so she's going to flip this over, remove 4, which she'll remove 3 here, and then remember we're going to go from left to right, take those rubble, and then score a victory point for removing that rubble. So now she has 2 victory points to my 1, and this is now available. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to flip over this card that says, again, it's the same as hers. The front sides are the same, but the backs are actually different on the different players, which is pretty neat. I am going to take 2 of my iron ore cubes. I'm going to place them back into the bag, and I'm going to place out a track. I'm going to place the track right here because this is now available now that rubble has been removed. I am going to score a victory point. See if I can find a victory point. Here we go. And now that I've also got that victory point there, now that I've got that, I'm also going to do this action that says I can exchange 2 rubble also for a stone. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take it from the stockyard here. And yeah, actually, no, I'm not, because I don't want her to have the option to get more iron ore. So I'm actually just going to take it from the bag. All right, because I have the choice, and that's going to be it. Now that it's her turn, she's seeing that she doesn't have a lot of resources and wants to get some more resources. So she's going to flip this card over that says take up to 3 resources from the stockyard. So she's going to flip this over. Then she's going to come over here and take these 2. And now we're going to refill the stockyard with 6 cubes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow. All right. So all iron ore and no event cubes, white cubes came out. So she's going to get her last cube is going to be an iron ore because she has no other choice for that. All right, so now that it's my turn and I see that a lot of this iron ore has come out here in the stockyard, I think I want to get in on some of that action. So I'm going to flip over the card that says take up to 3 resources from the stockyard and just go ahead and grab me 3 iron ore. And that's going to be the end of my turn. Now we're back over here and we see that we have some choices here. We're not sure about. She is thinking she wants to build a station because she wants to move up the track and maybe put some cards into her scoring pile. Yeah, I think this is a good move for her. So what she's going to do now is she's actually going to flip over. She could flip over this card that says build 1 station. She could also flip over this one that says build 1 station and pay 2 rubble. Now you might think, why do this one? Because it costs more. But I really want this action to remove rubble flipped back over. So because of that, she's going to flip this over, go ahead and pay the extra cost of the 2 rubble in order to build a station right here, which is going to cost her 2 stone. She's going to put that into her bag, and she's going to grab one of her station tiles. She is going to place it right here, which then again will trigger her moving up on this. It's also going to trigger her getting a passenger. Oh, that's my passenger. I don't want to give her mine. Then lastly, it's going to trigger this that says that she can lay track for one iron ore. Now, the stinky thing for her is that she can't lay track anywhere because of the rubble situation here. So she really had thought she might want to wait so she could get that, because it's a big part of this is getting that extra action here. But then again, she didn't want to give me the opportunity because she sees that I have a lot of iron ore to have that. So she's okay with what happened, but again, now it's going to unlock this surveyor action to where now you can be laying, you can lay track up to 2 times for only 1 iron ore cost. So that's kind of nice. All right, so I'm just going to play through maybe 2 more rounds or give 1 more action of each, just so again you can get a little bit more feel, and then we'll talk about the art and components and about the gameplay. So I wouldn't do this normally at this point in the game, but I'm going to go ahead and do it just so you can see what it looks like. I'm going to flip this surveyor card action over, move your surveyor, and I'm going to move the surveyor to the pub. And this is where we can score an action card. Now, in order for us to go to the pub, we actually have to use a main surveyor action here. So we can't do any kind of thing that says move your surveyor any other place except for this card to move them to the pub. But when I do, now I can take any of these cards and move it to my scoring pile and take one of those. And so because I have one of these stations out here, I don't have anything else much. I've got I've got 1 passenger. I've got 1 track, but I think this is the most advantageous because I've also looked at these cards and I know what's on the back of these. So I'm going to take this card, put it to my scoring pile. I'm going to then take, this card, which is going to have a surveyor action the same on the front, but on the back this says remove 1 rubble from a lion, and then you may flip an additional action card, which can be really powerful because there may be times where I just want to flip the card over, like I don't really want to do this potentially right now, but I'd really like to build a station, so I could have flipped that after I use that action on the back. So I'm going to do that, what this is going to mean is at the end of the game, what we're going to score is this. We're going to score the victory chits that we have, the passengers that we have, any bonus chits that we may have, like this one is whoever has the most stations on each track. But we're also going to score then, which is going to be a lot of our scoring, is going to be these cards. And this is going to say that I'm going to get a victory point for every station that I've built. So at the end of the game right now, I have 1 station, so I would get 1 point. But I may want to build a lot of stations, or I do want to build some stations so that I can score a bunch. So I wanted to go ahead and get that in there. In addition to, I got my pick. There's 2 of each of these that I can pick. I had to pick one with an E main action. I couldn't take one of these other actions here, one of cards. So when this card's removed, if anyone wants to score this E card, you're going to get nothing. You're going to have 1 less action. So kind of cool decisions that you're making over the course of the game with the way that you're scoring these cards. And sometimes these cards don't have very good actions on the back, or ones that you don't want at this point in the game. And you're like, oh, I want to score some cards, but I don't want that action. All right, so let's do 1 more action for her. And you know what we're going to do? We're going to move the surveyor. And I'm just going to show you this right here. We're going to move the surveyor and get a ticket. And let's see, move your surveyor and do 1. Okay, so she's going to come here because she likes this action and knows that this says move your surveyor to an action space for which you have a ticket. And she may want to do this later. When she goes here, she's going to get a ticket. Whoops. And that will score victory points if she can put this card into her score pile. But also, it's going to give her 1 iron ore. And she's going to take it from the stockyard here. And that's going to end her turn. So again, the game's going to end when we finish these lines by building tracks and putting these stoppers at the end, or whenever we put out the Navi tiles and every single one's out by an action. So the last thing I'll show you before we talk about art and components and give you my final thoughts and all that jazz is going to be these cubes. There's 3 cubes that can come out, either an iron ore, a stone, or an event cube. When an event cube comes out, we're going to place it right here, and we're going to take a Navi tile, and we're going to go top to bottom, left to right, and look for the first place that we can place this that doesn't have a station or doesn't have and a track built. And that's going to be right here, the top left space, which means we're going to place this Navi tile out here. We're going to remove the rubble, and now neither one of us can build track or build stations here. This is like a third party that's built there, but it will unlock the surveyor action there. All right, let's go ahead and let's talk about art and components. All right, so I think that the art in this game is really good. I like this little guy, this pub guy drinking a beer. I think that he looks really cool. I like the art on the cards. I think it's pretty nice. I think that the components are pretty solid as well. These cubes are fine. It is just cubes, but you know, when we're pulling from a draw bag, they all need to be the same shape and everything, so I'm totally fine with the cubes. These Navi tiles are really cool the way they fit over this. I wish Snowdonia had something like that. I think that they're really neat, and they're nice and thick. They're all good quality components, and again, I think the art is good, so I'm very much happy with the art and components in this game. So I say let's go ahead and let's talk about gameplay. All right, so let's talk about gameplay. I'm just going to come right out the rip and say I really thoroughly enjoy the gameplay of Foothills because it constantly puts you in interesting decisions that you're making over the course of the game, especially with the way that the card-based actions, like you flipping them over, and when you flip them over, oftentimes they're a lesser action on the back, and sometimes you have to take those lesser actions just to flip it back over to get one of those actions that are more powerful. And I love those decisions that you're making. I love also how you're having to remove the rubble. That's the classic Snowdonia, and I think that that's just fun. Removing rubble in order to then, and thematic, in order to be able to build tracks and in order to be able to build stations. I also really like the way that you build stations in this game that trigger that free surveyor action. So there's a lot of those interesting calls that you're making, like, all right, like in the course of this game that I showed you, where you're like, should I go ahead and build that even though I can't do that surveyor action because I don't want my opponent to get that, or do I want to push my luck a little bit, wait and see if maybe they don't take it, because I think by the next turn I could actually get not only the station built there, but also get that action. And I just think that it's brilliant. I think there's just a lot of simple mechanics that are brilliant in this game that just lead to just fun, like I just fun decisions, and sometimes difficult ones. I also really enjoy the way that you can put the cards into your score pile. And I think that's brilliant as well, because you're making those calls like, man, I don't really like the cards that are in the place where I'm drawing a new card if I put this into my score pile. But wow, my opponent already has 3 cards in her score pile. I only have 1. I've got to get more cards there. She's going to beat me because she's getting all those cards. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and place it in my pile and take the lesser card. And at the end of the game, it can be really interesting because you may not even get a card back. If they're gone, you may say, I am, for the rest of the game, forever giving up this action simply to put this card into my score pile. And I think that is just, it's just so fun. It's great decisions that you're making over the course of the game. So I'm just giving 2 thumbs up to the gameplay, and I'm going to go ahead and flow right into my final thoughts. Now, I mentioned what I really like about this game, and that is those decisions, those cards that you're flipping over, the scoring pile, the way those work, the station actions when you're building those and you're moving the surveyor and trying to get those combos. They're just so fun to make over the course of the game, and it gives you this cool Snowdonia feel. At not as long as Snowdonia. Now, I will say this, I prefer Snowdonia if I have the time to play Snowdonia. Even though I really like this game though, but I do prefer it. However, this is around 30 minutes. Now, I've definitely played games that have gone over to 45. Even I played one that almost pushed an hour. It just, we weren't drawing those event cubes out, and it wasn't pushing the game along. And so it took quite a while to play the game. But with that said, instead of an hour and a half game or so, this is like a 30-minute-ish game. And to get this much game packed into 30 to 45 minutes is just so cool. I get that Snowdonia feel, and I get it in a different way. It reminds me of, not the gameplay, but how Seven Wonders Duel has a different feel than Seven Wonders, which makes me want to go to Duel often because it just has a different feel. Oftentimes, two-player only versions of other games. Now, this isn't Snowdonia, the two-player version, but basically, this game's Foothills. It's its own separate thing, but it's a Snowdonia experience. But sometimes I want to play Duel because I just like those decisions more. But there's also times where I mean, overall, I like Seven Wonders better. But I get the same feel here. Overall, I do like Snowdonia better. But there's going to be times, not just because it's 30 minutes, but just because I want to get the feels in this game that I don't get in Snowdonia, and those decisions that I don't make in Snowdonia, I get some different ones I get to make in this game, and I love that. So I'll tell you, I really enjoyed this game. This is an absolute solid 9 out of 10 for me. This is gone to maybe the top of my two-player only games list. Targy's right there, and I still love Targy, but I think this is past it. I've played this game several times now, plenty of times now, actually, more than several times. I've played this plenty of times, and I have fun every time I play this game. Oh, I do want to mention one thing that I failed to mention, I wish I wouldn't have over the course of the game, is that there is variable setup in this game. There are 6 tracks, 6 lines that come out, but there's actually 8. So I like that as well when you're playing this game. It changes every time. Those decisions are changing every time, and I think it's really fun. I will say this, if you're not a big fan of classic Euro games, I don't know if you're going to like this game because it's got theme when it comes to the rubble and different things like this. But the decisions that are being made and you're pushing cubes and moving cubes around, I don't know if this is going to be your favorite game, but I'll tell you what, if you enjoy classic Euro, if you enjoy Snowdonia, as you can probably tell, I'm hype on this game. This game is a blast. Again, probably my favorite two-player only game. So with that said, thoroughly enjoyed Foothills. Now, if you're enjoying our channel, we would invite you to subscribe to it so that you can get, and even push the bell so that you can get notifications for whenever we're coming out with new videos. In addition to that, we have a podcast that's on iTunes and Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, all that. Just look up Meepletown Games. We're on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All those are at Meepletown Games. And we're Board Game Geek Guild 3407 if you want to get into more discussions. That's again, Board Game Geek Guild 3407 if you want to dive deeper into discussion and become more a part of our community. But until next time, thanks for coming down to Meepletown.
Thanks for joining us, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at Meepletown Games, and connect with us on the Meepletown Guild number 3407 at BoardGameGeek.com, and also subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. And until next time, thanks for coming down to Meepletown.